Give to Lincoln Day moves us closer to ensuring that everyone in Lincoln has a safe place to sleep at night. Because of your generosity, hope lives here. Give anytime through May 29th at givetolincoln.com.
Are you ready for a new opportunity? Check out Sandhills Global. Join a dynamic team where your skills are valued and your career can soar. We offer full-time positions with a 4.5-day work week, competitive pay, excellent benefits, and a positive work environment. From IT and marketing to sales and finance, we're looking for talented individuals just like you. Apply today at sandhills.jobs and take the first step towards an exciting future. That's sandhills.jobs. Don't wait, apply now.
When you're outdoors beneath Nebraska skies, adventure comes in all sizes. From quick escapes and long weekends to true off-the-grid retreats. Paddle, hike, camp, explore. Whether you have a few hours or a few days, we'll guide you to a state park or recreation area that's a perfect fit. Start your next adventure today at yournebraskaparks.com. Sponsored by Nebraska Game and Parks, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. This isn't any regular heat. This is nuclear heat. Live from the 93.7 The Ticket studios in the heart of Lincoln, America. Bringing you the latest from the Square Circle on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Here is your host, Jake Bockoven.
Yes, it is indeed nuclear heat. We're here to talk some pro wrestling here on 93.7 The Ticket. We get to do this show every week at 9 o'clock. So if you're new to the show, thanks for joining us. If you're a returner, well, thanks for coming back. Definitely appreciate the support. And if you like pro wrestling, you're in the right place to be. We'll break down what was the last week of WWE programming. Raw went to Kansas City. SmackDown the other night in Des Moines. Raw, by the way, will be coming to Omaha tomorrow. So locally, kind of a local tie in there. So that'll be exciting. And then this week also, it's never a fun time to necessarily see anybody lose their job, but it's certainly something to talk about. Was the WWE releases that happened as well. Liv Morgan's in a new movie. So a lot of different storylines to get through here. I'm Jake Bachman alongside tag team partner, nuclear heat contributor Augie Pena. Augie, how's it going this week?
It's going pretty good. You know, a lot of things happening in the wrestling world. And, you know, I think, Raw's coming to Omaha tomorrow. And we found out about that maybe a week and a half ago, because I don't think they did a great job promoting that this time. Because normally you see it, everywhere. But yeah, I just got lucky, saw it. And and it's like, oh, yeah, they're going to be in Omaha tomorrow.
Well, it's kind of interesting. This is obviously the post WrestleMania build up to Backlash, which is just right around the corner, I believe, after this week. So in 2 weeks' time, just under 2 weeks' time, I suppose, from today. So you kind of make your run there. The Kansas Cities, the Des Moines, the Omahas, take a break from the Vegases and the overseas crowd and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily something that's at the top of their food chain as far as promoting once it gets out there, but it's always great to see, whether it's Nebraska, Omaha in general, being something they kind of can focus in on tomorrow night.
Yeah, and I was trying to go because this is John Cena's last run, and then you come to find out he's not going to be in the Des Moines, Friday.
Yeah.
And Omaha. Those are two dates he's missing, and you're kind of like, well, all right then, never mind. I don't get to see John Cena one last time before he retires in person, then, because he decided he didn't want to make the stop in Omaha.
Yeah, well, again, that's part of the post-WrestleMania route they're going. So it is a little bit unfortunate, but will be fun to see what they do in Omaha tomorrow night. We'll get to Raw here in just a little bit, recapping what was a very exciting Raw, I think, certainly with kind of new ideas. Again, coming out of WrestleMania, we're starting to see the new feuds start to take place. But we do want to start with WWE releases, because those are always interesting. Obviously, it is not... sometimes I think people get really frustrated with these days. It doesn't always mean the end. WWE, you can get released, signed again a few years later, a few months later, whatever it might be. So it is not necessarily the end to the career for many of these folks, but they're always interesting and eye-catching, especially ones that have been in the programming as of late. and of course the big name one. So we'll go ahead and start with Braun Strowman being among the releases. Maybe one of the bigger names, certainly on the men's side, was the Universal Champ at one time. Had a great feud this past year with Bronson Reed before the Bronson Reed injury. So you kind of wonder, Bronson Reed started to be pushed in a different direction there with the new bloodline. But maybe there could have been something there, and then was pushed with Jacob Fatu as of lately, and heading into WrestleMania, he was kind of the extra guy in the feud with LA Knight. And I had to say, it's like, I know Knight has the title, but I was a lot more interested in Braun Strowman and Jacob Fatu at WrestleMania. So sometimes you kind of go backwards, see that math, say, well, that was kind of connecting with the crowd. Why didn't they go with that? This might have been maybe somewhat of an idea for what that could be. Of course, Braun Strowman, it's interesting with him. Could have went a lot of different directions here with his latest return. Was kind of generic good guy, would come in and save folks quite a bit of time, and then again took the punishment from the likes of Bronson Reed and Jacob Fatu, and did that in so a way that he was kind of the giant that could be taken down and put those two over. And now I think there's a bit of a lack of a giants on the roster. Also, missed opportunities there, I think, with the White Six, which never really took off. Maybe you could have done something there with him and Eric Rowan, even throw the rest of it out, just have them two tag. I think that would have been a special moment, going back to the Wyatt family. So it just seems like there's a lot that could have been done with Braun Strowman. That's what I know a lot of people feel over time. Especially Hosta Breezy. He'll go on and say it again. He feels like they're underutilizing with what they have to work with. And again, I think with this latest run, we'll see if hopefully he's brought back at some point. But it's the last time we'll see him in WWE for some while. Does feel like they didn't necessarily ever have much of a plan for him.
Yeah, and it, like you said, you nailed it there. It's disappointing because he always put on great matches, and he had that talk, he had the voice, the build, the speed, and he never had a bad match. It's always every feud he was in, it was like, okay, it's fun. Can this guy take on Braun Strowman? What can happen there? And it's there. And I've seen some stuff online that, he more than likely got released because he had a very high salary. And it was stating that they were paying him too much for what they were using him for. So that's kind of on the WWE. And I think he got released in 2022 the last time. And same reason was he was getting paid like over $1 million. And it's like, yeah, for a guy that's kind of, just not even on mid-card titles, just kind of in the mid-card race to do that. But yeah, it's always fun. I mean, he had the bloodbath with Jacob Fatu, as you mentioned, over the time and all that stuff. And it's just a really fun time watching him there. And then, to see him release, it was very puzzling. And I think every time there's these releases every year, there's like one or two wrestlers that just, very puzzling as to why. And I got to say this, the money talks, and he probably still wants to wrestle. But if I've been released twice and WWE comes back, starts calling again, I don't know if I'm picking up the phone that time. It's like that would be really hard. But, like I said, money talks. And if they're going to pay him over $1 million, to wrestle for a year, get released, and then come back, I mean, that's kind of hard to say no to.
Yeah, we'll see what the future holds for him. I think there is one thing that I've always liked about wrestling, and then under Vince McMahon in the 90s and all that, it was kind of the land of giants. And, be it, Kane, Undertaker, The Big Show, whatever. And so the Big Show for a long time was just kind of the giant you bring back just to in the giant spot, right? And they tried to use that. Of course, it is always a part of wrestling when you go to a live event and see somebody maybe taller than what you're used to seeing or bigger than anybody you've ever seen before. They bill them up to be even bigger than they really are, but that's okay. We all like to live in that kind of land. And it's just kind of interesting because obviously the Big Show, I don't necessarily see making much of an in-ring career at this point in time, so they can't go back to him. I think this was their giant. I don't know if they have anybody that necessarily has that same aura to use in that spot. Again, you try to put over Jacob Fatu and Bronson Reed the like, and they've got a few guys like that, but they're all kind of like, they're big, but they're not giants. They're like, they're 6'2" and under or something. And where Braun Strowman's, like 6'8", and really could be one of the biggest people you ever see when you go to a live event. They still have Omos on the roster. It's hard to imagine he's going to be the next great giant in WWE. Kind of has had his shot. So that is one thing that I find fascinating because they just don't really have for WWE at this time not to have a kind of a giant that's a made man.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I'm glad you brought up Omos because that's puzzling as to why he's still on a contract and hasn't been released. Because I think the last like 3 times we've seen him, he can't move. He's slow. And Braun Strowman was a freak athlete, so you're right. They don't have that, but it does feel like the main eventers. You look at Seth Rollins, he's maybe 6'1", 215, which is a lot bigger than we are, but is still not big. And then you got the Roman Reigns, who's maybe 6'4", 250, something like that. Yeah, so it is a little puzzling on there. And you're right. Now I was trying to go through like all the wrestlers in my head. I mean, even guys like Ivar, the War Raiders, they're maybe 6'2", like 260, but they're not tall.
Yeah.
And so I don't think there's probably anybody. Drew McIntyre might be the tallest guy at like 6'5", but we wouldn't consider him a giant. So yeah, you're right there. That is a little disappointing because it is fun when you have those big giants go for titles, against a guy, possibly like a John Cena, who's 6'1", 230 or so. It's fun to see the size comparison and to see them conquer a giant to retain the title's always kind of been fun. And you're right. That's what WWE's always been about. And now they don't got anybody. And I don't think NXT has anybody that's like that either. So they might be making that kind of like that NBA change. It goes from it was a center post game to it's a 3-point, point guards land now. So I think that's just where WWE's heading.
Well, and obviously, Andre the Giant was one of the best giants of all time. And again, back in those days, you would want kind of the bigger guys that less flippy floppy guys. Maybe I think Braun Strowman has called them before at the top, off the top ropes. The great Khali. I mean, they don't have to be great in ring. It's just the size, and you're like, wow, how are they going to take them? So I'll be interested to see what the future of giants look like. Whether that to be with Braun Strowman or not with the WD moving forward. Other releases, Shayna Baszler released here, part of one of your favorite groups. Can you name the group again?
I can't, but I know Sonya Deville's gone too.
Yeah.
So there's only Zoe Stark left. Oh, I cannot.
Yeah, well, it's your last chance because we'll probably never speak of them again. Pure Fusion Collective.
Yes, that name
was the group for Shayna Baszler. Sonya Deville, like you said, was released earlier. They kind of leave Zoe Stark out on an island. We'll see what they do with her creatively moving forward. Remember, she originally came in with kind of getting the rub from Trish Stratus. So they thought highly of Zoe Stark. These pairings haven't necessarily worked for the Pure Fusion Collective now. Again, just Zoe Stark, so I don't think it's going to be moving forward. But for Shayna Baszler, always felt like a bit of a missed opportunity, too. I think she still holds the record for Elimination Chamber eliminations. So she was booked and billed at one time to be kind of the bully of the women's locker room. And I kind of liked that time, but never, the promo was never going to necessarily be there. So having her work with somebody, a voice for her would have always been, I thought, better. Then I thought what they had and lined up for years was Shayna Baszler and turning on, now I'm forgetting
Ronda
Rousey.
Yeah.
And they just really kind of hurried that feud and didn't feel quite like, and I think Rousey's contract was coming up, so they just kind of had to push it. And it wasn't quite what you look forward to her book all along. And I think she's intimidating. I mean, she does the thing where she'll break your, go for breaking your arm or, going for a while. She was going to brutally take you out. But as we've mentioned, Pure Fusion Collective just wasn't really getting over or getting along anywhere. Part of that due to 50-50 booking. That's never going to help. But were you surprised to see Shayna as one of the releases?
Not really, because she hadn't been on TV for a while either. But it is disappointing, as you mentioned, because in NXT she was a beast, a monster, and it's always puzzling that they just don't continue the character. And I know, like us, we're a little bit more than casual WWE fans, but we don't follow like the NXT and things like that. It's always disappointing when you see the graphic when they first come in. It's like NXT, champion that has been undefeated for 4 years or whatever, and then they come into WWE and right away they lose it all. It's like Killian Cross. He like his debut was horrible. So you can kind of see it there. The promos bad. It just felt very forced. She wasn't great, but she was always great in the ring. Just she wasn't, like you said, popularity, and while she had the look and she could do it all there in the WWE, you have to be able to deliver promos, and she never could. And so besides the name, Pure Fusion collection. I thought pairing her with the Sonya Deville would have been nice because I think Sonya Deville she's kind of a miss because I feel like she could perform in the ring and talk on the mic. And so I thought, oh, the pairing with Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler, that could be perfect. They could be the bullies, like you said.
Yeah.
And then they named them Pure Fusion Collection, and I think that just kind of ruined it all. So I'm going to blame that. But yeah, the Ronda Rousey thing, just that everybody was clamoring for that for such a long time because they're friends, UFC sparring partners, things like that. And they put that feud together in like 3 weeks, and it just didn't work out there. But I've actually been following Shayna Baszler on TikTok and things like that, and she does fun things. She did like a Monday stew of the day, got a good following on that, and the very first thing people were saying was no more Monday stew of the days now. That's gone. So it is very disappointing, but she'll land somewhere like TNA or maybe AEW. So she's got the in-ring ability. So I think we'll be seeing her there somewhere.
Yeah, I do think that she's put her name over enough in WWE to certainly get plenty of opportunities outside of it. Remember at one time she was kind of part of the faction that they were thinking with Ronda Rousey to kind of do the mixed martial arts 4 against the 4 women that kind of helped mobilize the women's revolution and Charlotte Flair, the 4 horsemen, they call them horsewomen, and that never materialized. So a little bit of a few things that maybe could have gone better to maybe not have seen this day come for Shayna Baszler, but here we are. Surprising also that Dakota Kai was released. Of course, part of Damage Control. Io Sky has the top belt, so I mean, you could throw her into anything and make it interesting, even if it's just to get kicked in the face and leave TV for a while, which they could have done if they were going to release Dakota Kai. I think to put heat over on Io Sky's upcoming opponent, at least write her off TV. They didn't necessarily do that. So again, Damage Control now down to Io Sky, Asuka, and Kairi Sane. And Asuka and Kairi Sane haven't been anywhere to be seen for a while either. So that's kind of interesting. Dakota Kai, also the surprising part about this is she was just this close to winning her first title belt, singles title belt. And there were certain folks, you and I, that would have liked to have seen it happen as she was going up against Lyra Valkyria. Clearly, they've had plans for Lyra Valkyria. It didn't appear to have plans for Dakota Kai after that.
Yeah, and I think the thing for Dakota Kai, she had popularity and everything, the injuries. It just felt like she was always hurt. Her knees just kind of gave out on her. We mentioned this a couple times. She's like 36. So surprisingly, she is a little bit older than people expected. Somebody who hasn't gotten a title and was kind of still making a name for themselves. So I think that's, a big part of possibly why they released her. I still would have, like you said, kept her. Io Sky, while she is the top champion and they're giving her more mic time, she's still not great on the mic. And Dakota Kai could have been still, her person, kind of like manager on the mic. And that would have made it a little bit better because that's what she's been doing while she's been out. And you said, you could have written her out. I feel like the last year she got written out of storylines like 3 times because she just kept getting hurt.
Right.
So this one does hurt. I feel like, she had the voice in ring, just could never stay healthy. And WWE just decided we can't, I don't know, we can't rely on her to just be around there. And it does sting for Io because I think Asuka's been hurt for a while. And I think Kairi's hurt now.
Yeah.
So you're right. Now that she's got the top, she doesn't have her faction to have her back there.
Yeah. And for Dakota Kai too, I always appreciate she's got really long legs. Stacey Keebler would appreciate that too. But that kick that she did in the corner, the running kick, it was always kind of like one of those pop moments where it's like, oh, she almost beat somebody. That should have been her finisher because that was believable when she took people out with that. So that was another release that may have surprised people. Kaden Carter and Katana Chance, one-time women's tag team champions, and Katana Chance specifically, Casey Catanzaro from American Ninja Warrior. So it was kind of fun to see that. And they did give them the belt for a while. Tough to say whether they were completely getting over, but they could definitely go in the ring.
Yeah, and they, they're very small. So that was something we talked about. Very, very small. I think maybe 5 foot, if that, both of them. But like you said, I think just maybe even this year they had early January, they may have had a stint with the belt, and they were in that tournament. I think they were the last team to show up, for the WrestleMania, and they had like 3 title shots. So it's a little bit surprising too, especially the Cayetana, because I remember when she came in, she did the American Ninja Warrior, and that was a big signing. And, she was kind of the Kofi Kingston for the Royal Rumble. She had those spots there. So that is sad there, but I think, they'll land on their feet. I think like like with Dakota and Shayna, they've done enough. I think that another company promotion is going to come through and is going to ask for them to be a part of it.
And there's more names that we're going to go through. I mean, Gigi Dolan, Cora Jade, some of the other names that were released this weekend. I've just got a few more to get your thoughts on. Jakara Jackson was a surprising one to me because she had just been seeing, TV time, not just on NXT, but along with Lash Legend. And Lash Legend looks like, a little bit of seasoning with her game, she's going to be a star.
Yeah.
And so, I always thought, Lash Legend does outshine Jakara Jackson. What do we have here in Jakara Jackson? And unfortunately, never really able to see too much of it on the main roster.
Yeah, and it's disappointing. This is another kind of like with the Shayna Baszler thing. Like, why call them up to the main roster when they're having success in NXT, and then you get forced to release them? Because I think their salaries probably bump up if they go from NXT to the main roster. And I mean, if you don't have room for them, there's no point in calling them up if they're doing great things on NXT. Because NXT, while they say it's the third brand, but it's the development league on there. I just don't see why they do that all the time.
Yeah. It's interesting to see what they do here, and the releases are always interesting too. Oh, I did want to get to Shotzi as well. So Shotzi Blackheart also released. Mm-hmm. She had recently kind of gone back to NXT to do some work there. So had trouble maybe finding a spot on the main roster. But even this last year was in Survivor Series War Games. Remember they had the whole angle where I can't remember who, somebody cut her hair and kind of made her unhinged and all that. And I always thought, her entrance with the tank and all that was always very interesting. Felt like there was more to Shotzi that they probably could have got out of, but it did feel weird. Like even her inclusion in Survivor Series didn't feel quite like she earned it, and then they didn't give her the moment to kind of put her over through it. Then you're just kind of thinking, okay, so what's next? And what's next was some NXT work and now a release.
Yeah, and she tore her ACL too, I think, after the Survivor Series, so that hurt. And I think I saw that they just let her contract expire, so I think that's why she was like a late surprise there. But yeah, she was a little rough around the edges, but that entrance was always fun. And then when she cut her hair, because I think her sister had cancer, and so she decided to rock it that way. I thought that was great. I was like, WWE gets behind that. But yeah, I think she came back to the main roster, didn't go great. NXT, I don't know if it was going great there, and they decided that she just was somebody that was going to go there. But I know that she has a YouTube channel with Scarlett, Karrion Kross's wife.
Okay.
So I guess we'll see, if they continue it, because you don't know kind of how those partnerships on those podcasts or YouTube channels work. Are they under contract with WWE or things like that? So it'll be interesting to see if they continue that.
I'd be interested to hear Scarlett talk because mostly she's just making faces.
Yeah,
so,
and they go to like haunted houses, haunted places like that. They every week, like they have Dawn. Like it's fun. If you've never checked that out, it's actually pretty fun. And I was surprised too, because I don't think I've ever heard Scarlett talk before either. But yeah, it's her and Shotzi's pretty much podcast or a YouTube channel that they just go around and invite other WWE stars to go to haunted places.
Oh, it's a little bit different than Stephanie's places, but I think 100%, I'd like maybe a little more there. So that'd be interesting. Then I mentioned it briefly. Liv Morgan is in a movie, and they didn't even hide it. They're just they were trying to maybe somewhat bring awareness to it, but it'll be Bad Lieutenant Tokyo. There've already been a few different in the Bad Lieutenant series. I think they date back years and years, but so there was kind of this talk about Liv Morgan. It was just going to be this huge movie role. And apparently this is going to be big in some, in some way. Mm-hmm. And we'll see if it turns Liv Morgan into kind of a Hollywood star. So of course, we've seen John Cena and Batista and The Rock go that route. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next. But right now, Liv Morgan, part of the tag team championships, they're not going to relinquish those. So we'll see how long we don't have Liv Morgan on air. Not necessarily great to lose her, especially for Judgment Day. Raquel Rodriguez is going to be a little bit lost. So it'll be interesting to see how long Liv Morgan is off TV and what are the ramifications from it.
Yeah, and this just goes back to everything we've said about how they treat those tag team championships, because if you're champion, before it was if you're going to be gone for a month, which I think is what they said, she'll be gone for about 4 weeks to film. You have to defend your title in 30 days is what the rule used to be. Now, we see those titles disappear all the time. So I would be surprised if Raquel Rodriguez disappears with her, and they just don't mention the titles, and then they come back. Oh yeah, she's back from filming her movie, and here we go. The titles are on the line. That really just doesn't bode well for these championships. And if you don't want to punish her for doing that. But if they're going to be gone for a month, or if she is, why would you give her that belt? Why not just wait, and if she lost it at WrestleMania, somebody else could have won it, and then they come back and then win it again. But yeah, I don't know. That just, you're right. It doesn't sound right, and it's not a good look for those tag titles.
Yeah, probably not. We'll see what happens with them, but it is interesting. Maybe they could have kept, the heel turn there from Becky off for a while. Enjoyed a little bit of the return, but they didn't seem like they were too interested in putting by Lyra Valkyria as Lyra 2 belts for too long. So, but you're right. I mean, especially to kind of heat up that division a little bit. Maybe could have seen something different there. We'll see. And for Liv Morgan, again, there was a report out there that she might be the next it girl in Hollywood after this. So this could be her big breakout, or it could be with the Miz's and all those movies.
I was just about to say the Marine. The Miz took
over.
over the Marine when John Cena went. He did like 6 of those movies, and as long as it's not a WWE production, she'll be fine. If it's a WWE production, I don't think she's going to be the next it girl in the WWE, because I can't remember when the last time a WWE production movie was great.
Yes. Those don't generally do great outside of the WWE community. But,
no, which I enjoyed the first Marine.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. Apparently didn't do good. I enjoyed 12 rounds with John Cena. Did the first one, but then like the second one had Randy Orton. The third one had Dean Ambrose. Like they just keep doing that. And then you see like Triple H did movies. A Big Show did movies. You just the Miz did like Hallmark WWE type movies. It just, So like I said, as long as it doesn't have WWE productions around it, I think she'll be fine. But I mean, unless she's supposed to be like the main character, or
I think she's like the primary, like she's a daughter that gets kidnapped.
Okay.
Type of situation.
So
somewhat main character. There's 3 names attached to the movie that have been released. She was one of them.
Okay. All right. So I mean, she has a chance at it. It's really hard to see WWE, stars like that, really, because Roman Reigns was supposed to have a big career when he started in the Hobbs and Shaw with The Rock.
Yeah.
I mean, that didn't really go
Hasn't
anywhere.
taken off, maybe. Yeah.
And Seth Rollins too. He was supposed to be in the Captain America movie, but I think that got cut.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just not really. I mean, outside of, like you said, John Cena, Batista, and The Rock, really, there hasn't been a WWE star that's really broken out. Just because they've kind of been held back by being WWE superstars, and then it's when they go full time. Oh, okay. They can really do something there.
Yeah, so we'll see what the future holds for Liv Morgan, and maybe try to check out that movie, see if she is the next it Hollywood girl. But we do have to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about WWE Raw from Kansas City. What was Seth Rollins, Paul Heyman, and Braun Breaker up to? I was bullying Sami Zayn. I'll go ahead and say that. But it was an exciting episode. We'll talk about it next year on 93.7 The Ticket.
In every office, there's 2 types of people. There are those who bring in bagels and those who eat the bagels that someone else brought in. Everybody likes the first person. Be that first person. Weekday mornings at 7:30, you have a chance to win a business box of bagels from Bagels & Joe. All you have to do is shut up, Sipple. 2 questions for you, 2 for Sip. Win, and the bagels are yours. Lose, well, you don't want to lose.
You lost Monday, you lost Wednesday, you're a loser.
Shut up, Sipple. Weekday mornings at 7:30, brought to you by Bagels & Joe.
Your home is your empire. Protect it with Empire Fence. Get a free instant quote with the online estimating tool at empire-fence.com. See an upfront estimate with no hidden fees. An Empire Fence can provide privacy and improve the appearance of your home. Keep kids and pets in or out of your yard. Increase security and add value to your property. Visit empire-fence.com now to view the stylish and maintenance-free possibilities for your home and get a free instant online quote. Let Empire Fence protect your empire.
Are you a fan of local wine, craft beer, cider, or spirits? Don't miss SIP Nebraska's 12th anniversary celebration May 9th and 10th at Mahoney State Park, and join others who share your passion for great drinks. Enjoy unlimited tastings, live music, delicious food, artisans, and lawn games as you celebrate Nebraska's vibrant beverage industry. And when you find one you love, you can buy a bottle to take home. Choose your ticket package at sipnebraska.com. The SIP Nebraska Spring Festival, a Blur event, May 9th and 10th at Mahoney State Park in Ashland.
Are you ready for a new opportunity? Check out Sandhills Global. Join a dynamic team where your skills are valued and your career can soar. We offer full-time positions with a 4.5-day work week, competitive pay, excellent benefits, and a positive work environment. From IT and marketing to sales and finance, we're looking for talented individuals just like you. Apply today at sandhills.jobs and take the first step towards an exciting future. That's sandhills.jobs. Don't wait, apply now.
It pays to participate in LES Peak Rewards. You can earn a $25 gift card when you enroll your qualified smart thermostat in the program. Help curb electric demand and sign up today at les.com/peak rewards.
Hey, it's Chad with Nutrition Authority inviting you to stop in and check out the #1 selling complete post-workout product, CPR. CPR is ideal for anyone who works out, exercises, or competes and wants to maximize results. CPR can only be found at Nutrition Authority. Stop in today, try a free sample, or visit us at mynutritionauthority.com.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bockoven, on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We are back here on Nuclear Heat, ready to talk some wrestling here on a Sunday night. We'd like to hear from you too, 402-464-565. If you have any thoughts, or you can comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We do have a few responses. Thunder Not Collins chimes in, says Condemned was good. He liked the Stone Cold Steve Austin story.
Yeah, that was a really good movie, and that's one I forgot. And that another one, Randy Orton was in the sequel. But the Condemned, yeah, I thought that was a fun one. I owned it back in the day. I got it back from a trip in Mexico when my family forced me to go down there for 2 weeks. Came back with the Condemned, and that's when I was like, whoa, Stone Cold Steve Austin can kind of act here.
Yeah.
And then I don't think I've seen him in anything else after that. But it was a good movie.
Yeah, so there you go. At least there's something WWE related movies that maybe worked out. Kyle from Facebook also says they released Strowman but kept Nia and has a puking face. I know you're not a big Nia Jax fan either, Augie, but there's a lot of names that are a little bit more surprising. Like you said, contract negotiations, just attitudes in the locker room, that sort of things can kind of lead you to different decisions than what we see from the outside. But Strowman out, Nia's still going strong.
I think it is a little surprising because once again, they broke records for WrestleMania. You know, it's one of those, like, it's always surprising when they do it right after WrestleMania because every year they're breaking records, they're bringing in all this money, and then they're like, oh, sorry, we're cutting you due to budgets. And it's like, well, you just went and made like $1 billion off of WrestleMania. Like in my contract, $600,000 a year. You know, it's like, come on, you know, things like that. But it is, you know, we joke and we do all that, but it is always kind of sad because WWE is the big leagues, right? So when people get released and stuff, their dreams of making it to the big leagues are essentially over. And I'm gonna say this: I am still not happy that the Iconics were released and never brought back because that was one of my favorite tag teams in the women's division. And they're out there now. They're doing it again. So, you know, maybe the Iconics are to come back because I thought they were a fun group that just got released, you know, out of nowhere.
Yeah, they broke them up rather quickly.
For no reason, they tried to push one and not the other. And I was like, no, they were perfect together. They were hilarious. And you gave them the belts. They lost it. And then I think like 3 months later, they were released and my heart was broken. So never been recovered, WWE.
Yeah, there you go. Bring back the Iconics as the crowd cheers. But it is interesting too because they released a lot of like backstage people, production people too. Some that I saw had been there for like 2 decades. So remember TKO now owns WWE, so they've got bigger budgets to worry about as well outside of just WWE. So kind of interesting. I thought maybe with all that there might be a even bigger list of wrestlers released, and so that didn't necessarily happen, at least as of yet. So we'll kind of see what that means in the future for the WWE superstars. But let's head into WWE Raw from Kansas City. Opened up with Seth Rollins coming out to the ring with Paul Heyman and Braun Breaker. Of course, the new faction doesn't have a name yet, but we'll figure that out at some point. He goes out there and is interrupted by Sami Zayn, who calls him out, basically says that he's being hypocritical for what he's basically creating after what he's been fighting for years. But Seth Rollins says the future of the industry runs through Seth freaking Rollins, and he gives Sami Zayn an opportunity to get out of the way. He says basically you can go to SmackDown and you won't be part of what we're going to do here. I don't know exactly what word he was using, but basically warned him if he doesn't go to SmackDown, he's going to have to be collateral damage to what Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker are about to do. We'll just go kind of through this segment all together of course, was kind of bleeding throughout the show, but we can kind of hit on the whole story here. Zayn was even offered a title shot upon switching to SmackDown by Paul Heyman, so he's going to get the winner of John Cena and Randy Orton. So that's a big deal. Obviously, Sami Zayn, one of his stories continues to be that he wants to go for the top belt. Later on in the show, in fact, to close out the show, he actually denies Rollins and tells him that he wants to do it. He doesn't want to run, and so he's not going to do that. Braun Breaker's music hits after the deal was shut down. Breaker ends up spearing Sami Zayn 4 times. And then Rollins hits a curb stomp for good measure there at the end of the show. I thought this was really good. Any episode revolving around Sami Zayn, I think, can kind of capture the audience attention because he is kind of a very good kind of guy to connect to from the audience. Just genuine baby face. And it kind of establishes Rollins as he's the heel and he'll go after anybody, even the folks that he's made a friendship or at least a partnering with over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I was a little surprised when Sami Zayn's music did hit, and you're like, not Sami Zayn, kind of. They got this great storyline, this great feud coming on, or faction, and then Sami Zayn's kind of the first guy. But then everything they said, he pointed out a lot of great things. He's like, like you said, he, was saying you stopped Roman Reigns, but now you're trying to be Roman Reigns. You're doing the same thing, so. That's always interesting there. And I thought they did this in a great way here too, with that. And I also want to say, watching it on Netflix, that Kansas City crowd was horrible. There was no reaction to a bunch of things that should have had reaction, should have had oohs, at least ahs or boos, something. And it was dead quiet. And I'm just like, Kansas City, that's 3 hours away. Come on, do something on there. And I'm like, if that would have been in Lincoln, that place the roof would have went off, there. But, I thought this was a great segment, and I'm very excited to see who that 3rd or 4th member is going to be of this faction whenever they decide to give it a name. As long as it's not like something along Pure Fusion Collective or whatever their name is. Give them a cool name. I'm all behind it.
Yeah, and we'll see, too. It is interesting. Rollins coming off of winning at WrestleMania. There was no belt behind it, so they continue just going to say, yeah, I won at WrestleMania. But it's interesting because at some point you're going to have to turn him going after something that means something. And I think this is kind of setting up for that, right? Jey Uso busy going after with Logan Paul going after him. Obviously the friendship there with Sami Zayn. I think eventually you're going to get to Rollins and Uso, but you got to make that story matter a little bit more. Yeah. So unfortunately, Sami Zayn's got to be probably sacrificial, and Jimmy, you're probably next.
Yeah, and that's kind of the other bad thing is Sammy just got written out by being the sacrificial lamb in one of the feuds, and he's kind of jumping in to be the sacrificial lamb. This is where I think Seth probably severs a lot of his friendships, because Sami Zayn is like the most liked guy in that locker room, on TV too. He's friends with everybody. He's in every storyline. Yeah. And if Sammy or if Seth and that group take him out, pretty much everybody's going to be like, hey, that's a no-go. And I didn't think about the Jey Uso thing about that. I think that'd be fun as long as he can get by Logan Paul, because you don't know what they're going to do there.
Well, you probably do, but you never know. Maybe WWE
you never know.
Surprises you there. Let's move along in this episode. Rhea Ripley against Roxanne Perez. The upstarts from NXT are trying to swing at the top fences here. Swing for the fences here in the WWE main roster, going after Rhea Ripley. Julia interferes for a disqualification. Io Sky comes out to make the save, and the WWE stars stand tall against the NXT heels. Still a little bit getting used to Roxanne Perez and Julia, but it is interesting too, because Rhea Ripley has already made it clear to Io Sky that she's going to go after that belt. So we've got something kind of intriguing with a pairing between Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. Obviously, the future is here. You're going to see a tag team match between them and Roxanne Perez and Julia. Is this an interesting? It seems like maybe a little bit of a placeholder till we get to Rhea and Io.
Yeah, it is a little bit interesting. It is confusing because Rhea did save her. They saved each other, hand each other the belt, things like that. It's always a little tricky. They used to do this back in the day a lot. It's like the enemies who have to become friends and things like that. But I do like that these, Roxanne Perez and Julia, I think they're great. Roxanne Perez was kind of pushed out of the gate and then, gone for a while. So I think that is cool that I think they're full-time call-ups now. They've got to be on there. But the thing that I think hurts them a little bit in this whole thing is they also brought up Stephanie Valdez, who is the NXT champion, and she's great. I think she's kind of outshines them.
Yeah.
So I feel like they maybe shouldn't have brought her up, and they should have just brought these two, because now they're kind of be second fiddle to her. And I feel like as long as she's NXT champ, she's gonna go back, and then you're kind of like, you kind of debuted all three, but held back probably the top star. So that's kind of the one negative I see about that. But other than that, I mean, these four I think are going to put on great matches.
Yeah, we still have to see too, because that was a match we get into later tonight, but we can bring it up. Just is Stephanie Vacura and Ivy Nile. Vacura is the NXT champion, and she, had to get around the whole Chad Gable interference in this match, but did win against Ivy Nile. It's not the top of the card, but it does make you wonder, what are they doing with Vacura here? Just debuting her, showing her strong and send her back to NXT, or do they have plans? I would assume Ivy Nile is not the top of the plan list there.
Yeah, and she was a part of, Julia doesn't like her. Roxanne doesn't like her. So 2 weeks ago, she was kind of a part of that feud because she was facing Io Sky with a champion versus champion.
Yeah.
And it feels like they're really teasing us. Like you said, they're kind of pushing her to the moon, but she's the NXT champion. So unless she loses it and then comes up, but she's somebody I feel just watching her for 2 weeks, and I don't watch NXT. I don't know who she is. She's got the look. She's got the in-ring ability. She's got a really weird move where she does that whole
Booker T likes that one.
Yeah, that's hilarious when they bring that up. But she's somebody that feels like if she drops the belt and comes up, she's in the main event scene right away.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's just where it's going to go. Whereas Julia and Roxanne and Perez, they're kind of mid-carders. So that's why I say, if you're not going to fully bring her up, that was kind of a disservice to the other two.
Yeah, that's interesting. Logan Paul calls out Jey Uso. We got to this briefly, but he's going to go for that World Heavyweight Championship. Did a little bit of back and forth here. Uso laid out Paul with a super kick that didn't actually kick his chin. And Paul gets revenge later in the show, partially taking out Jey Uso before Sami Zayn got attacked. So kind of explaining there maybe why Uso wouldn't come out and help his friend Sami Zayn there. But like you said, this seems to be run-of-the-mill Jey Uso first title defense. Hard to see Logan Paul getting that top belt here. If they do it, I think they maybe should do it. Well, it's interesting. I mean, Jey Uso is over, but maybe I would think Logan Paul's time to shine would be down the line against a bigger name. So I think this is probably going to end up with Uso winning, but a good first title defense because Paul does bring the heat from the crowd.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. We talk about it. I may not like Logan Paul, who he is, but he's great in the ring. He's great in the promo. He's got a big following. So it's always surprising. I think this is now like the second or third year in a row they're using him right after WrestleMania to go after a title. He's probably not going to win it. But the thing that kills me is Jey Uso is now the champion, and that's the super kick. You hit his mic. You hit his mic in his hand. That's still, to me, you got the Botch King, out there as your champ. And so it's still a great story and everything, but get better. You're the top guy. You're the second guy, because John Cena is obviously the number one guy with that championship, and this is a secondary belt. But you're the top. You're one of the top two guys, and that's still what you're doing. That doesn't sit right with me, and that's why I'm like, yeah, they gave him the WrestleMania win, but this is Logan Paul we're talking about. He may not be liked by us, but he's got like 20 million followers, stuff like that. That talks in WWE, so you never know.
Yeah, I do think at some point Logan Paul will have a top belt, but I don't know if this is right when they pull the string there. War Raiders against Judgment Day. Judgment Day this time consisting of Finn Balor and JD McDonough, because they don't have belts, so they have to go after them themselves. This was a number one contenders match. Penta came out and cost JD McDonough actually to get revenge, because JD McDonough cost Penta the previous week against Dirty Dom. So we're headed toward War Raiders and New Day, just like everybody wanted again from WrestleMania.
See, and this is where they keep dropping the ball here. The War Raiders are great, but even though you've got the Judgment Day falling apart, you should get them to that, and then they lose, and that's, then you're so close. And I do like what they're doing, because they didn't even tell Finn Balor about anything, right? They didn't tell him JD was coming back. They didn't tell him he was in this match. things like that. So they're putting the cracks in there. But then you do this, and it's like, that's a storyline we want. I'm sorry, we don't care about the War Raiders and New Day. We would love Judgment Day, New Day. Like I said, then something happened there. So once again, they keep doing that to Finn Balor, and it eventually it's going to get old, and people are not going to care about the Judgment. Kind of with the Damian Priest, Finn Balor.
Yeah,
we were all interested in it. They waited way too long. Didn't do anything with the belt. The belt wasn't involved anymore. And you're like, okay, kind of who cares? And then you saw what they did. They kind of did all right, we get people don't care. And you don't want that with, the Finn Balor Dom getting kicked out or whatever is going to happen, because that's a hot storyline right now. You got to take advantage of it when you have it.
Yeah. And like you said, Liv Morgan being out might put off any discussion or any movement there within the Judgment Day. We'll have to wait and see. Other news from the night, just a few more things to get to before we get to SmackDown. Becky Lynch admits to attacking Bayley, sets up a title match with Lyra Valkyria for Backlash. A couple other thoughts. You give me we got to go pretty quickly. Just kind of wrap up your thoughts here. Rusev's promo, I thought he made a good debut. I thought they should have used him again. They just used him as the promo, kind of the destroyer character he's bringing over from AEW. We'll see what goes on there. And Pat McAfee addresses the Gunther attack, and Nick Aldis sets up the match for Backlash. We also got some Michael Cole chants from the Kansas City crowd. At least give him credit for that.
Yeah.
Pat McAfee and Gunther, is that going to draw you into that premium live event?
I don't know. Maybe. It's not what I want for Gunther, but I like Pat McAfee, and I know he can wrestle. But this is the guy that they were building up to be kind of like Goldberg. We talked about it, and now this is what you're doing. He's going after Pat McAfee.
Gunther can't lose.
No, he can't. And if he does, it's over. If he loses to Pat McAfee,
the Mystique,
it's over.
Yeah,
he can't come back from that.
And what's it going to do for McAfee? Who's just going to sit on the sideline and wait, 6-8 more months?
It's going to do what it did for Cole 20 years ago. Cole's going to be able to say, "Hey, I'm undefeated at WrestleMania."
Yeah,
that's it. In one of the worst WrestleMania matches of all time, Michael Cole can say he won and he's undefeated at WrestleMania.
Yeah, it was. I mean, and obviously Pat McAfee, much like Logan Paul, brings in a different audience, and so and he's great in the ring.
Yep.
It's nothing necessarily there. That's just not the matchup. Like, Gunther really can't afford to lose here. And so we'll see what they kind of do. Maybe get more heat on him for going and beating up Pat McAfee. Maybe even write him off TV for a while so he can go do some other stuff. So that could be what we're seeing playing out there. But if Gunther loses, my goodness, is that a fall from grace? All right, let's go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be back to top WWE SmackDown from this past week next here on Nuclear Heat.
This is it, Husker fans, your final chance to see Nebraska baseball at home this season. It starts Tuesday, May 6th with a huge rivalry matchup against Creighton. Then it's a Big Ten showdown as the Huskers host Michigan May 9th through 11th. Every game matters, and your support can make the difference. Great seats are still available, but they're going fast. Get your tickets today at huskers.com/tickets or by calling 1-800-8-BIG-RED.
Right now, when you drive by Honda of Lincoln, you'll see more than 200 new Hondas and over 125 pre-owned vehicles. Hi, Charlie Stone here, and with me on the line is Andy Goodyear of Honda of Lincoln. Andy, how does it feel to have so many vehicles in stock again for your customers?
Charlie, it feels amazing to see how excited our customers are. They love the ability to see, test drive, and take immediate delivery of the exact new Honda they're looking for.
Do you have some good offers to talk about?
We sure do, Charlie. We're offering financing as low as 0.9% APR up to 72 months, or great lease rates on every new Honda. It's the perfect time to drive away in the new Honda you've been dreaming of.
How about pre-owned, Andy?
We have over 125 pre-owned and certified pre-owned vehicles to choose from. Just about every make and model with prices starting at under $10,000.
Maybe it's time you experience the best, the Honda of Lincoln way of doing business. 27th and Yankee Hill Road, or online at hondaoflincoln.com.
The electrical workers of Local Union 265 are now hiring licensed journeyman electricians from $32.50 to $42.50 per hour with paid benefits. And if you're looking for a new career, they're hiring apprentices at $19.50 per hour with paid benefits. Call the office at 402-423-4497 to apply. Start your electrical career today.
Get ready for the largest dirt late model event in Nebraska, race fans. The Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series is heading to Eagle Raceway's High Bank Heist on Thursday, May 15th through Saturday, May 17th. See the greatest dirt late model stars in the country compete for $10,000 to win on both Thursday and Friday, and an enormous $50,000 to win 75-lap main event on Saturday. The High Bank Heist, May 15th through May 17th at Eagle Raceway. For more info, visit eagleraceway.com. Let's go Lucas Oil Late Model Racing. Eagle Raceway, just 10 miles east of Lincoln on O Street.
Your home is your empire. Protect it with Empire Fence. Get a free instant quote with the online estimating tool at empire-fence.com. See an upfront estimate with no hidden fees. An Empire Fence can provide privacy and improve the appearance of your home. Keep kids and pets in or out of your yard. Increase security and add value to your property. Visit empire-fence.com now to view the stylish and maintenance-free possibilities for your home and get a free instant online quote. Let Empire Fence protect your empire.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bockoven on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All right, we are back here on Nuclear Heat, ready to talk some WWE SmackDown from this past week in Des Moines. We'll just open it up here with LA Knight was walked by Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, and Damian Priest all getting into a bit of a scuffle backstage. So LA Knight starts his promo out there. Priest confronts LA Knight. They agree to do their match, which was supposedly supposed to be the main event. They agreed to do their match. Now let's get a ref out there. So they do that. So Sikoa shows up and causes the DQ, and he's going after both of them. The numbers game catches up to Solo. Jacob Fatu comes out and evens the odds. So a little bit interesting to see where we're going here. Jacob Fatu, Damian Priest, and LA Knight certainly seem to be part of the mix, but will Solo be part of the mix as well with Jacob Fatu in there? And where's Tama Tonga? Bring him back.
Well, I think he's hurt, right?
I think
he might be hurt. Yeah, we haven't heard in a long time there. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, what they're doing with Jacob and Solo, that whole kind of, are they cool? Are they not? They're there. I think eventually Solo is going to be the one that cost Jacob that championship.
Yeah.
And whether he's involved in the match, like part of it or whatnot, I mean, something's going to happen there.
Yeah, and Drew McIntyre has been kind of part of that feud too, so we'll see what the future is there. Again, Fatu and Priest and McIntyre Knight, I think, would make for a heck of a fight, and I believe they even announced that or something close to that.
Yeah.
For coming up at the next Premium Live again in WWE Backwash, as they call it, no, Backlash, which is coming up here after WrestleMania. And then we had Pretty Deadly with Prince and Wilson against Fraxium, who was making their second match here. Nathan Frazier looks really impressive. A Phoenix Splash for the pin and the win for the High Flyers. Obviously, they've done a good job trying to get Fraxium over on the main roster. What are your thoughts on Fraxium?
They have the look, but I just right now WWE gives no. They don't give us a reason to root for these tag teams because they don't do anything with them. They have a run of the mill. The SmackDown championships weren't even defended at WrestleMania. That's a bad look. And then they had a banger on the SmackDown afterwards, but you could have had that at WrestleMania, and that just shows you kind of how they treat that division. So it's really hard because like the Motor City Machine Gun, I think they're phenomenal. They're new too. I don't really care for their segments because it's the four same tag teams, that are just going after it, and they're playing hot potatoes right now.
Well, and Axiom, I like the name to combine them together is kind of cheesy, so I'm not a huge fan of Fraxium. But Axiom, I think, is going to be hurt a little bit because of how many luchadors they have recently brought to the table. It's like for years, once Ray left, it was like, all right, Sin Cara, we'll try one guy at a time. Now there's luchadors left and right everywhere, so Axiom doesn't feel quite so special on the roster.
Yeah, and I mean, with TKO and WWE taking on AAA, which is the Mexican luchador, they're all part of the WWE roster now. And so, like you said, it's they're really fun to watch, but most of them are gonna get lost in the shuffle unless you're a Rey Mysterio in there.
Yeah. So we'll see, which is funny because they lean into that. For years it's like trying to find the next one, and now they're just like, it's just part of the story now that Rey Mysterio is the top guy everybody cheers for, and so they always make that part of the story. Like either a luchador loves Rey or disrespects Rey, and then you move from there.
Is it Rey Fenix? Is that his name? They hyped him up so much. He lost to El Gigante or whatever, Grande Americano at WrestleMania. Come on.
Yeah.
You know, that if you're hyping up the next Rey Mysterio, he can't lose to Chad Gable. I mean, I don't know who it is in the match, but you can't lose to that guy.
Yeah. Rey Fenix did have some get into action later. We'll get to that here in a second. We didn't have the Nia Jax promo. She was interrupted by Tiffany Stratton. Naomi actually came out, and then Jade Cargill, of course, comes out to follow Naomi. This set up a tag team match for later in the show. Again, we'll just jump to that match now. Jade ends up powerbombing Nia Jax for the win here, but the real story was Jade Cargill and Tiffany Stratton, again, who were teammates for this match, but look to be headed toward fighting for that title at some point. Naomi attacks both of them, and she ends up standing tall with the title at the end. Kind of a good twist there because it looked like you're just heading toward Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax. Naomi now and Jade Cargill, maybe, again, a fatal four-way battle or something along those lines coming. Because I did like, it's always surprising. It's a great show of strength to see Cargill powerbomb Nia Jax. But if it's going to be Tiffany and Nia Jax, and Nia Jax has already been powerbombed, it just wouldn't have been the right time for it.
Yeah, and this is a good mix of them. I know people are getting a little worried because there's no reason for the Jade and Naomi storyline to be going. She beat her. You beat her.
Yeah,
that should have been the end of it. But it makes sense because they're related by marriage. Nia Jax and Naomi, because Naomi is married to Jimmy
or Jay. Yeah,
I think it's Jimmy. Yeah. I think it's Jimmy. Who is Nia's cousin. So it kind of makes sense if they kind of maybe get together and make a faction. I don't think they've ever really been together, so that's kind of cool. On there, and then the match we all want once Jade gets there is Tiffany Stratton versus Jade Cargill. So if they can kind of tease it in this fatal four-way and have none of them take the pin, I think that's a smart way to do it.
Yeah, we'll see what they do there. I like a little bit of a fresh look at both those feuds moving forward. Aleister Black made his return for in-ring fighting against The Miz. A little bit of a back-and-forth battle, surprised some. But remember, Miz is a former champion, so they protect him a little bit here. Black cartwheeled out of the skull-crushing finale. I thought was a cool moment. And then quickly hits a black mass for the win. Kind of interesting. The Miz, obviously, is always talking himself up. He's got a tag team partner there in Carmelo that just won the Andre, so maybe he gets fed next to Aleister Black, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. And I do like that Aleister Black is still paying off that eye injury from the last time he was in WWE. Remember, he had the eye patch, and now
he lost an eye.
Yeah, he lost an eye. But it is a little, The Miz, I know he's at that point. He's always great. And like you said, surprising to some, it shouldn't be surprising. He was one of the top guys for the longest time. Just they now treat him as a guy that really puts over young talent. That's like all he does.
Yeah.
So
does a great job. I mean, he's always, if there's somebody new they bring up to the roster, somebody that's struggling creatively, pair him with The Miz, and usually they will come out better for it. Zelina Vega against Piper Niven. Of course, Zelina Vega, the new U.S. champion, and I wondered what that meant for Chelsea Green. She was wearing funeral attire, basically, and just acting very, very distraught by having lost this U.S. title. So her character survives it, and it's moving on well, I think, from there. Chelsea Green and Alba Fire were at ringside for this match, and Green actually collided with Niven, which ultimately allowed Vega to get the win.
Yeah, and this is fun. This is great, but I think eventually you got to give Chelsea Green that title back to make sense of having her service, a part of it, a faction, which I think can be great.
Yeah, and again, Zelina Vega, cool story at times. She has the crowd over with her. Mm-hmm. The crowd doesn't seem to be all that interested in what's going on with her right now anyway, so we'll have to wait and see, but I think you're right. I think Chelsea Green does wind up getting that back at some point. We mentioned the Rey Fenix Santos Escobar match. Phoenix did win that with a Meteora from the top rope. Santos Escobar. I like Santos Escobar. He's kind of just been on the mic here the last couple of months. So bringing him back for a loss against Rey Fenix, not necessarily great for his future there. And then the other thing I did want to get to before the show ends, Randy Orton's promo. Of course, you said John Cena didn't necessarily make his way to Des Moines. So Randy Orton was out there doing the promo himself, said Cena is the latest legend for him to go after, of course, referencing the Legend Killer character that he had previously in his career. Also referenced the PG era, which was kind of interesting for Randy Orton there. Without John Cena, I thought it was a pretty good way to try to hype up the match.
Yeah, it is, and it's a little surprising that they're doing it so quick for Backlash. So we'll see if there's a clean finish there, what happens, because I don't suspect this is the last time we'll see Randy Orton versus John Cena go one-on-one for that title there.
Oh man, it is going to be fun, nostalgic to see that, and of course a bit of a different look at it with the typical heel now a face and the typical face now a heel. So exciting week of wrestling. Of course, again, this will lead up, and then we'll have one more week to get us to Backlash. So wrestling is always on the move, new feuds to look over, and lots of stuff to break down. Like we said, today was a big this week, and today's show is big on WWE releases. Hopefully, we don't have too much of that to go over next week, but we will be back here at 9:00 next Sunday for Nuclear Heat. I'm Jake Bockoven. He is Aggie Pena, and we will see you tomorrow morning on 93.7 The Ticket, bright and early for early break.